Changing a tyre isn't too tricky, but we want to make sure that we do it safely, correctly, and in the right order. What we want to make sure is that the boot's closed, the bonnet's closed, and there's no one in the car and all the doors are closed. If it's on the side of a road, we want to make sure that everyone's standing well away from the road so that there's no one else that's going to get hurt while we're changing the tyre. We want to make sure that we've got the right equipment out ready before we start doing it, so we don't work out we're missing something. So obviously we need the spare tyre.
Got that?
We need something to lift the car, which is the jack. We need any other components the jack needs to lift the car, which in this case is the wrench. And we need something to take the nuts off the wheel so we can actually get the wheel on and off. And you always need the logbook. So if you've changed the tyre on a car before, then you're okay. But if you've never changed on this particular car, you just want to make sure you've got the jack points in the correct spot. The first thing that we're going to do is actually loosen the nuts on the wheel. So we're going to loosen them diagonally across and just enough so that we can have what we call them hand loose. Once we've got the nuts loose, we're then going to actually jack up the car. We've already looked in the logbook to find the correct jack points under the car. I always slip the jack in underneath so that the jack's almost closed, not quite open enough, and we slip them under the points. What we're going to do is slowly jack up the car until the jack is actually touching the points in the vehicle where it's touching, and we slowly will start to jack up the car, and you'll notice the whole car will start to lift. If we've put the jack in the wrong spot, you might notice that the car's not lifting properly, and also you'll notice that it might start making some cracking noises. Once we've jacked the car up enough, and everyone always says, how do I know it's enough? Jack it up until you've got about an inch or two from the tyre above the actual ground, or until the jack won't go up any further. Now what we're going to do is loosen the nuts even more, taking them all off, and we always say put them into your pocket so you don't lose the nuts. If you lose one or two, you can always take one off each other wheel to pull back onto the spare. So we've put the nuts in our pocket. Now what we're going to do is actually carefully take the wheel off. So staying nice and low, staying fairly close to the car, and we're going to lift the wheel off, rolling the wheel onto the ground, and we're going to grab the spare tyre. So what we're going to do now is stand very close to the car, and I actually put my body against the car, and we have to make sure that the actual holes in the wheel line up with the nuts on the car. So what we're going to do is do that before we actually have to lift the tyre. So I've lined all the holes up. We're going to lift it onto the wheel, and sometimes it takes a little bit of a jiggle just to get them on. I hold it with my leg while I slowly put the nuts back on diagonally across from each other. So that way you don't have just the top ones on and the bottom of the wheel is poking out or the other way around. So I've put the nuts back on and I tighten them by hand. I can then lower the car, remove the jack out carefully, and then I'm going to grab the wrench and tighten the nuts up again until they're as tight as I can get them. Have a check around to make sure there's nothing that I've left behind, and then pack everything away back into the boot. So now that we've got the spare tyre on, a couple of things to point out. It says temporary use only. Spare tyres are designed to get you to a service centre, not for you to keep driving for the next few months on. And if you see the sticker here, it says maximum 80 kilometres per hour. You're not allowed to exceed that speed limit with this tyre. Once you go into the tyre centre, they're going to put a new tyre on for you, and then you're going to get a wheel balance and a wheel alignment. That'll make sure that you can handle the car correctly, especially in a braking emergency or when you're turning a corner, and perfect for fuel economy. So it's important that once that spare tyre's on, that you get back into a tyre service centre and get a correct tyre back on.